What I want to do basically today is just share with you some of the things that we experienced that we've been talking about the last. Byron was in hospice. We did our Bardos thing. And then I want to deal with basically, I was born and brought up in the manse. Our grandfather was a minister. My husband, my father, my brother-in-law. I mean, we're winning. But how God brought to me something at Byron's death that I had never thought of before. Byron died in 2006. So we came to Tabernacle in 1975, and Byron retired in 1990. He took interims. And in 1997, I turned 70 that summer. And he said, we need to go and pay for our funerals. I have no idea what impelled him to say that, but he said, okay. And we knew that we were going to be cremated because Byron was in the service. He was a medic with the Navy, and the Marine Corps has no medic of their own. They get the Navy corpsmen. And he was a corpsman, and he was wounded on Iwo Jima, which has a big thing, okay? So he came out of the war with a discharge in the Purple Heart, which entitled him to Arlington. So, and he wanted to be buried in Arlington. Is that my hearing aid?
No, it's John Paul. I apologize.
Anyway, so we went to, as I said, the reason it was cremation because Arlington was running out of space. And they encouraged, this is 1997, because people were coming in after all these, okay. They encouraged cremation because they said they're running out of horizontal space. And so he said, we'll be cremated. Okay. So we went up to Aaron, Reuben, and Nelson, 1997, talked about our funeral, our cremation, and we paid $427 for each cremation. Good, can't beat the price. And so then he said, what we need to do, he didn't let me in on his word. So what we need to do is we need to get some paperwork done here. Bardost, okay? So we went to our attorney. We made our wills. He already had a will. I didn't. Power of attorney. This is all Bart. If you wrote it down, you recognize it. Then we had a medical power of attorney, which means that somebody can make a decision about what, okay, on or off or whatever. Then we had a living will. It's all okay. Okay. Then we wrote our obituaries, and Byron wrote his service, what he wanted. This is 1998 now. We're in the January. And, I forgot to tell you one thing. I have one thing that's important. In our will, what we did was whatever was left over in our estate, okay, 10% of that would go to Tab. In other words, we would tithe what was left after, and then the boys would get right down the middle. They were co-executors. I have two sons, John and Byron Jr. Okay, I think you can do what you want with that, but we wanted to do that because Tab meant a lot to us. Tab was with us. Well, actually, I had cancer twice. The first time was in May of 2000. And the way that the church came, you have lymphoma, stage 2. Okay, but chemotherapy will help. And you get, okay. You're never cured. You're only in remission. And mine did come back in 2011. But anyway, so here we are, all geared up. And then we kind of forgot about it. And did various things until, as I said, I was diagnosed with cancer. And then in 2003, Byron had drastic heart surgery and was diagnosed with, senior moment here, congestive heart failure, okay? Balance between kidney and heart, cardio. And Kurt Parr was his cardiologist who had gone to TAB, and he was in and out of the hospital, the cardiac hospital on Meridian. So, Byron went into, Kurt said to him in Kurt said to him in April of 2004. Take it back, 2006. He said, Byron, you're going to have to go to a facility that can take care of you. And so we looked at each other, okay. And he said, I want to go home. So that meant home hospice, which we experienced. My sister, she's a nurse, so she came, Bill came, and Byron went into home hospice the last week in April of 2006. And he continued to decline and died on race day 2006. I was in the kitchen reading the Star, and I heard gentlemen start their engines. And John was on the phone to one of our kids, I can't remember what, and he came in and he said, Mom, I think Dad just died. And, yes, Dad had just died. In fact, his eyes were only partially closed, and I just put them shut. And my sister's there, John's there, Barb's there, me, okay. We did not call the mortuary right away. And this may sound strange to you, but we decided to do this. And we sat with Byron was dead, on his bed from hospice. And we talked about him. It was very comfortable. And he was always special to my sister Vale, because when we got married, she was 10. And Byron loved horses, she loved horses, and they were they were just like. And when we were in seminary in Pittsburgh, she'd come down, a teenager, come down just to hang around and be with us. And when our first church was in West Allis, Wisconsin, she came out there, 16, 17 years old, and she was always there. So we did this comfortably. It's up to you what you do. We called the mortician about 7 o'clock. And they came, and of course everything belongs to hospice. But they wrapped Byron's body in a white thing and put him on a gurney and rolled it out to the hearse. And we followed. And I remember, went into the hearse, shut the doors, and off they went. And I thought, all of a sudden, it occurred to me. And you say, where were you? I don't know, out somewhere. That I would not see Byron again like that. So now we're switching over to something. I'm standing there, and I didn't even share it with John. We did our own thing. But what I thought of is the verse that you will hear in the next 2 weeks over and over and over again. I am the resurrection and the life. And here I am standing, minister's daughter, granddaughter, how they got all the answers wrong. But I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believes in me, you know what it is. Even though he die, he will live. And whosoever lives and believes in me will never die. And I said, wait a minute, Lord. I just saw. I just did. What do you mean, never die? And I'm telling you, that's the first time in all my life that I looked at that verse. What is this? You may not be there. As I said, how old was I? Did it all my life. Knew what it was. But I want to talk about that for the balance. I want to talk about these verses that say, if you believe, you're never going to die, when I know very well he was dead. And I said, well, I got this figured out. Not really. If you remember the occasion of that verse, it was, you have to speak loudly. Yeah. Mary and Martha and Lazarus' death. Okay. And Martha was annoyed with Jesus. You say, how do you know that? I just read it. You know. In fact, Lazarus was ill, and the disciples said, well, why aren't you going? And he said, well, read it again. But anyway. So she's annoyed, and she comes out before he even has a chance to get in the house. And she said, if you'd been here, he wouldn't have died. Now, that was hardly loving. No, see what her belief was there. He would not have died. Well, and what did he say? He said, I am the resurrection. And he said, do you believe that? And she says very carefully, yes, I believe you're the Messiah. So she wasn't totally sure either. And of course, you know the balance of that. So, again, I'm going to give you a chance to kick in on this. I mean, because maybe you've had your own way of handling. You're walking with me at this point. And so what does this mean? There are no same death experiences. People die differently. Old, young, children. As I said, there's no normative death, but I needed to understand this. So, went back to Genesis. Why not start there? And if you remember, of course, the garden, Adam and Eve were created to live eternally with God in the garden. Now, eternity is something you can explain easily. You want to give it, you understand everlasting? You do, okay. They were in eternity because God's in eternity. When the fall, whatever you want to say, what the Adam and Eve sinned, disobeyed, there were two things that happened. The most important thing is Genesis 3:15, where God says, the seed of the woman will bruise the head of the serpent. The only way to kill a snake is pop their head. So what was that saying to Adam and Eve? They got the message. All right? The second thing that happened was Adam and Eve were no longer in eternity. They were in time. This could be a little heavy, but I don't want it to be. if you read chapter 5 in Genesis, it starts listing how old everybody is. Now, if you're in eternity, you don't have an age. That's not easy. One of our young people said, I think I know how old they were when they sinned, maybe 18 or 19. No age. No age. Don't get it. And you have Methuselah lived 900 years. Everybody's got an age because we die. And that goes with leaving everlasting. Don't let me lose you, okay? Leaving everlasting and getting in time and dying. There's a beginning and end to my life and yours because we're in time. And that's all we understand. So I look at this verse and I said, there must be something that I'm not getting here. And I think maybe it is, okay? When Byron died, we say, where is Byron? He's with God. Well, where's that? Okay? Yeah, he's with God. God is not in time. He's eternal. Stay there, we can talk. I want you to kick this around. Don't let me put you to sleep, okay? He's with God, so he is eternal because he's with God. Okay. So in order for him to be eternal, he has to get out of this time body. See where I'm going? You have to get out of this time body. This is tied to time. But if he's with God, wherever that is, he is no longer confined by time. So you take that verse, and we're Lazarus too. Of course, Lazarus was a little different because he came back. I have no idea. We don't have any interviews on the C-SPAN with Lazarus. How was it on the other side of it? No, don't have that. So when he says to Martha, I am the resurrection. Anyone who believes in me, though he die, will live. But he's got to get rid of this time body. And I don't understand that. I don't get it. But I believe it. So there's part of this life that we're in about death where I have to say, I don't get it. And it's all right to say, I believe, but I don't get it. It's okay. It's okay. What I think, again, and I got to thinking about this, and I remembered somewhere where somebody had said it was Paul, I think he said, I see through a glass darkly now. I don't understand what's going on here, but I will. It will clear up. I'm seeing in a fog. So, and I couldn't tell you this too. I couldn't remember where that was. So I'm getting into my thing. It's tacked on the end of 1 Corinthians 13. Well, we use that for weddings. I mean, these are these people. I don't know. But Paul says at the end of this, and I've got to say it. I've got to read it, okay, because I'm thinking, I'm in 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. And you know what it is. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, is not proud, love never fails. And then Paul says after this 15 items, for we know in part, we prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, imperfection is out of the picture. And when I was a child, I'm reading on, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. This is Paul talking about the love chapter that we, of course, know. Well, anyway, I thought like a child. I became a man. I put childish things. Now we see as a poor reflection in a mirror. Now we see face, then we will see face to face. Let me say that again because I kind of blew that. Now we see partially, okay? But we will see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully because I am fully known. So I want to put you in this chapter and take that section and put it in with this verse, which we will be hearing about in the next. I am the resurrection and the life, and how can you live and die at the same time? And I want to say something else about 1 Corinthians 13. To put that in a wedding ceremony is totally out of the world. I mean, it doesn't belong there. There's not, when I get up there and they say this thing, love is not, I say, no, you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to do it. And they're up there blinking white, and I'm thinking, this is not what that's talking about. And the more I read it and read the last part of that, I say, what's this? There's only one human being that ever lived that whole section I love, and it was Jesus Christ. So I put the 13th chapter, I take it out of weddings and put it what it elevates the person of Jesus Christ. And of course, here's another tricky one. Jesus Christ is fully human and fully divine. You got that answered? You figure that out? No, you don't. And it's okay, because you're only seeing through a glass darkly. The glass is clouded. But this, to me, and again, I'm going to give you a tack time, right, pretty soon. Corinthians 13 is the person of Jesus Christ. And of course, Paul goes on to say, there's faith and hope. The greatest of these is love. So we have to go back to Genesis. How you doing? Hang on, it'll be okay. We go back to Genesis, and we see recurring from Genesis to Revelation, God loving, seeking these fallen people. I love the Israelite people did continually evil in the sight of the Lord. What does he do? Brings them back. Brings them back. Over and over and over again. I love it. It's done in the name of love. Even Revelation. You got all the beasts and what I call the whore of Babylon and figuring out who's what. The last chapter of Revelation says, come, I stand at the door and knock. Okay, the Bible parenthesis is God showing his love for humans that left him, humans in time, left this relationship, broke the relationship, and he keeps saying, I want you, pick you up. Those Israelites, we have right from the beginning, the flood, promise, God, world's terrible. I won't do it again. We have Abram, whatever I want to say, okay? One man, then a family, then a tribe, then a nation. Old Testament. Over and over again, what's God doing? Picking them up. And see, I love that. I have to hang on to that. But they're in time. Back to this verse. I believe this, that resurrection is restoration. This is Beth. You don't have to agree. But when Byron died, he was restored to where God wanted. And your relatives, wherever, whatever, they're there too. With God in eternity. And what he got when he died was restored to what was always his. What does it say? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believed in him would what? Not perish, but have everlasting life. You slide over that? Sure. Sure. What you do with stuff you don't understand is slide over it until all of a sudden it hits you in the face. So, as I said, we're not expected to grasp the infinite. We don't have the equipment. Paul says, I don't have the equipment. Does that mean I'm dumb? No, I'm in time. And that's all I understand. So, I have written on the resurrection is restoration. And that's the way I read this verse. Okay. You don't have to raise your hand.
I've been reading a book called the greatest verse in the Bible is Genesis 1:1. It's a fantastic verse, and he talks about the sky and the stars and how big the moon
I don't
is.
have any problem with that.
All of that, but it gets to be, the universe, our universe is but a dot, and there are trillions of universes out there, and they are all getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's not where I want to go, Tim, okay?
But that's part of
Well,
the scope of
it may be. I don't want to go there. I want to just say, to me, the greatest verse starts when God gets immediately, he says, I'm going to send somebody. And of course, the word Messiah means the anointed one. What were you going to say?
I just thank you, Beth, so much. Just love what you're saying today. Thank you. I think we often forget those promises of God when we are either ourselves are ending our life, material life, timely bodies on earth, or when our loved ones are. And I just cleaned the promise of John 14 that God's preparing that mansion
that's
for us.
another one. Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget those promises that the Lord has made to us.
Of course we do. Of course we do. And sometimes because we can't understand them. And that's why it's easy to just put it on the shelf. Until, as I said, I was hit in the face when I saw those Hearst doors closed. I said, what's this mean? What's it mean?
Other questions, comments?
Oh, come on. Come on.
I think it's really interesting how you separated eternity from our,
Yeah. Do you want to enlarge on that a little bit?
no.
Okay.
But I never thought of it that way, and I thought that was very interesting. I liked the way you presented that.
Yep.
So Beth, I appreciate your talking about Byron being able to die at home. And I think sometimes people are maybe a little leery of that or afraid or that it can happen. And I just think, I just appreciate your sharing that. And you know, it is definitely something that people can do. And
Say that again. There's definitely somebody can what?
I just think it's definitely a way of people being able to die at home. I think that's an option. And
Oh,
I think
yeah.
so frequently people think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not. And I know Greg's grandmother died at home, and it was very peaceful, and you know, it worked out really well, and that was what she always wanted too. So I just appreciate you bringing that up as as an option.
Let's nail that, because the way people die depends on the person who's dying. And I think we need to respect, you brought up a really good point. Some people want to go in hospital, some people want. It was Byron's choice, and I'll tell you something else that Byron chose to do. He stopped eating. And of course, well, that's normal. A lot of people when they're dying, they stop eating. He stopped drinking or eating, okay. And the nurse said to him, Byron, you're not, and of course, he said nothing. You know, talk on if you want. But this was his choice. And another thing, in my point of view, I had to let him die the way he wanted to, not the way what. I'm one of these people who say, how do you feel? How do you feel? Not Byron. Never wanted to talk about anything where his health wasn't concerned. But I think it's totally up to the person who is dying how they want to die. And of course, when we had the hospice, we put the bed in front of the windows that looked out over the estate. I didn't. That was not 5916 is not my dream home, but it had a big lawn. It was almost an acre, and Byron loved. We had a place to watch the squirrels go up and the birds, and he had his stuff, and flowers. In fact, when we first were there in 1975, 70s, he had a garden in the back. Corn, tomatoes, zucchinis, proliferation. And I, of course, city girl, I didn't pay attention to anything that grew. And we had one of our Indiana storms, knocking everything down. And I'm out there in this garden picking up these 12 inches of corn stalks. And then, what am I doing? But this is what he wanted. And Marcia, some of you here visited him when he was Jim and Marcia. And anyway, I can't say, Tab just embraced us. It was the church at its best. It's interesting to me, too. I wanted to nail that so that the person who's dying sets the stage the way he wants to. Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you, Beth, for sharing your story. I just had similar experiences with both my mother and my husband. My mother died at home, and we were happy when they told us that she would not live but 6 or 7 months. I'm here, family's in Georgia. They called me, take mother home for home hospice. And when she died, she waited for me to get home. And I was the only one with her. I played the piano, and she took off while I was playing. And I had not played in 30 years. My husband died at St. Vincent, but again, I made the decision. I want him to go home. And I think he felt that it was too much for me after having gone through hospice with mother for 8 months. He died the night before I had him scheduled to come home. So again, he made the choice that he wanted to go. Mother did not necessarily make the choice, but as family, we took care of each other, and she raised 5 of us, and we felt that we owed her that. We also had the ceremony. Thank you.
Brenda, thank you. Carolyn.
I don't know if I can get through this because my experience was so similar to Beth's. As far as my husband died at home, that was the most rewarding thing. And I would care for him forever, but he couldn't live right. So
Exactly right. They're terminal, T, yeah.
You have to let them go when they're ready.
Exactly. That's a good point. And again, we have to say that again and again. The person who is dying sets the ambiance. And
You just let them go. They're in God's hands anyway.
it's true. What's hard to do is let that person be what he is and how he wants to do it. And I'll tell you something, it might be interesting to you because it shows Byron. in February of 2006, he'd been just steadily going down, but he was not yet in hospice. But he was, he had developed fluid in his lungs because of the problem between the heart and the kidneys. So he would have to go in because he couldn't breathe and be taken out, my medical thing. He came in on February of 2006, and he said, "I got you a new car, and I have paid for the service till 2010. You won't have to pay for service." Okay? Now, you don't speak Byron. I did. What he couldn't say to me, "I'm dying, and I know I'm dying." He said, "I bought you a new car and paid service till 2010. His way. This is going to be good.
I'd like to say something about Byron's naval career.
Yeah, you were Navy too.
Yes. Byron lived with death every day. He had a marvelous career. J.F. Kennedy, Iwo Jima, and I think that those experiences certainly
Shaped.
shaped him.
Oh, yeah.
He was an outstanding person.
Yeah, you were a good friend, Jim. A good friend. And they're not the only ones. I've just, as I said, we were so taken in with Tabernacle and in fact, the last time I had my cancer, I see Mary back there, I was mad. You have cancer again. She's laughing because I'm so angry, and I have a different kind of pain that time. And I'm thinking, I was so sick with chemo. But I blame all my problems on chemo, but she was there, Jane Harvey was there, it was just really good. Put up with this brat. And I had to go, because my sister said, "Well, come to Pittsburgh," because they've got this, it's just like IU and Methodist. The big hospital in Pittsburgh's Presbyterian, and they have a whole thing of cancer this and cancer that, and wigs and all that stuff like that. But my oncologist in Pittsburgh was Dr. Christian, and of course it amused me that he's Jewish. Oh man, stuff like that just breaks me up. I think it's so funny. But, and he said, "Of course, we have 6 treatments." I said, "I'm taking 4. I'm taking 4. Oh, it was terrible. Terrible, that's all I can say.
I think Jill has a question.
Wow.
Oh, well, I was just going to comment. Eileen also died on her own terms. I mean, she was in the hospital a few days before she went into home hospice. We sat in her room. She planned her whole funeral. She planned Moselle Sanders for the next funeral, told everyone what they were going to be doing. And then I always had the feeling that she was going to pass away when I was with her and not when Pat and Mike were with her. And she did. They thought she might go into a coma at first, so I didn't know at first. And I actually tried to wake her up. And of course that didn't work, but about the second or third time I thought, "You're having fun with me now."
What's interesting to me is there's very little in the Old Testament about resurrection, about the afterlife. I'm trying to think of the Hebrew term. Olam haba, which means the world after. There are, of course, Job says, "I know my Redeemer lives." But there was Sheol, which was not hell. Kind of a gray area.
Right.
But there's very, very little about the resurrection in the Old Testament. The New Testament, it's almost on every page. What does that tell you? You should answer this. There's going to be a test.
You should know Jesus Christ as your Lord and your
Thank
Savior.
you. Jesus Christ. And of course, the concept of the Messiah was kind of muddy too. The one who was going to come and bring Israel back. And, but it's right in the, what does Martha says, no, take it back. This is Thomas. I love Thomas. I really, really love it. And because Jesus says, I'm going to prepare a place for you and all stuff like that. And you will be there. And he said, you will come to my. Thomas says, we don't know where you're going. We don't know. Where is this place? See, I don't know whether John and Peter had any idea. They didn't want to say anything. They let Thomas say it. And of course, the other thing, yeah.
I think for 1 Corinthians 13 should be in the marriage. I think it should remind the couple,
Okay.
not the whole thing, but starting with love is
We're just
patient,
gonna take a
kind,
few-
love not jealous or boastful, love never ends.
Okay.
That should be, because when they have their difficulties, differences,
Okay.
and hormones change, that they will remember that as they get older. And I think it's important that's in it to remind them of that. You know,
All right.
It's a goal. It's a goal. It doesn't mean they're going to make it. I mean, you know, my wife and I, we never had arguments, but you know.
Okay.
In church too, actually.
I've got to confess, the Holy Family did not live in the manse, our manse. Okay, take it there, but I want to take it beyond that, Bill, and it's fine. You don't have to. You can stop right there and use it in your writings. I just look at the whole thing.
Well, at the end of it, I think you're right.
There's nobody that can live up to that.
If we didn't have answers hereafter, we go nuts. Because you go read that Bible and understand every word, you're a better person than I am, because
No.
most confusing thing, but you know you're going to find out when the time comes. Everything.
All right, I agree, but
with that
I agree. And leave it in the wedding ceremony if you want to. I'm just saying there's not a wedding ceremony, bride or groom, that can come close to what's in. And it didn't turn me. It's fine.
But it's a goal. You can't reach it, it's a goal.
Whatever.
Other questions? Bill, comment?
Well, yeah, you go back on chapter 13, Corinthians again,
Oh, good.
and we talk about seeing through a glass darkly. And there's a note here that I think is interesting. The completed scriptures are like a mirror which shows us as we are and encourages to make needed changes. And the ultimate says we shall know in full only when God's plan is revealed to us in Scripture itself. And I think that's interesting to
I
think
think it's
that
fine.
the
What's
completed
God's
Scriptures.
What's God's plan?
He's coming
Oh,
back.
he has a different
Wait a
plan for
minute.
each of us.
Huh?
He has a different plan for each of us.
He
I mean,
does?
As far as
Wait. He has a different plan for each one
I
of us?
think each one of us has a particular plan
All
that
right.
we are born with that. It's in
All
our
right.
DNA.
So
And we have, we are seeing what is our purpose. And as we find out that we are a slave to Christ, and we have, we're supposed to follow what He
All right.
is doing.
All right.
We have to instinctively know what His particular plan is
Okay.
for us in this life.
But what's his ultimate plan for you and for me? I mean, we had a different way.
Yeah.
But yes, there's a plan. But what's his ultimate plan?
To join him in eternity.
Yeah, I think
To be with him,
to be with Him, hopefully
hopefully?
that's our ultimate desire.
Okay, let's talk ultimate. Okay. But we say, okay, I agree with you. But I just push it a little bit farther. He wants everyone, he wants the world. He loved the world. I don't get that either. What you don't know is Bill took 2 of my courses. He took 2.
Other questions about death and dying today?
Something the
Join me,
Bible-
please, in thanking Beth for a wonderful presentation.
Don't forget one thing, kicking around. Resurrection is restoration. Restoration. Back to eternity, which I don't get.
Hey, we'll lose all that
Wonderful.
weight, all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Again, please thank Beth for this great
Oh.